Hey guys, it's Logan Holmes, and it's time for movie review number 5. In this video, I'll be reviewing the SpongeBob SquarePants movie from 2004. I have the DVD, let me go get it real quick. Here it is. I don't know if you can see it too well because it's... you can see it pretty well, at least I can. Anyway, it's from 2004. So in this episode, I'm sorry, in this movie, we have, Mr. Krabs is opening a new restaurant called the Krusty Krab 2, next to the Krusty Krab. And he's going to hire someone as a manager for the Krusty Krab 2. And SpongeBob, he's thinking that it's going to be him. But instead, Mr. Krabs hires Squidward. Because Mr. Krabs says that Squidward is more mature than SpongeBob. And SpongeBob is just a kid. And then meanwhile, Plankton is plotting this, his new plan, called Plan Z. In which he steals King Neptune's crown. And he says, and he leaves a note saying, "I stole your crown, signed Eugene Krabs," which has King Neptune coming to the Krusty Krab. Who, decides to free, who finds out that that Mr. Krabs stole the crown. And Mr. Krabs gets a voicemail from this guy who sold the crown to a guy in Shell City, which is a city that everyone who's been to Shell City has never returned. So, SpongeBob comes in, and he's like, he's been, he ate, several gooberberry, triple gooberberry sunrises at this club, at some kind of, club called, at a Goofy Goober restaurant. And he's like, it's like he's drunk on ice cream. So then he's like, I have something to say about Mr. Krabs. I always thought that Mr. Krabs was a great boss. But now I realize that he's a great big jerk. I deserve that manager's job, but you wouldn't give it to me because you said that I'm a kid. Well, I am 100% man, and this man has got something to say to you. I know that first one was longer, but I'm not going through all that. So Mr. King Neptune decides to cook Mr. Krabs, but then SpongeBob decides that he'll go to Shell City, and then King Neptune gives SpongeBob 10 days to go to Shell City, but then Patrick's like, he can do it in 9. King Neptune's like 8, and Patrick's like 7, and then King Neptune's like 6, and 6 it is then. Until then, and Mr. Krabs will say frozen, then he freezes Mr. Krabs. So SpongeBob goes with Patrick to Shell City, which once they cross the county line, they get their car, which is like a Krabby Patty vehicle, which is a Krabby Patty. They get that stolen. So they have to go to this place, and they find it at this bar, and then, well, so that they have to go in the bar and get the key. So while they go and get the key, and then they have to create a distraction. Well, they're in the bathroom and they start making bubbles.
Excuse me, sir? You folks have to leave.
What? Say that again, if you dare.
You folks have to leave.
So yeah, then they start making bubbles in the bathroom with using the soap dispenser. Well, one of them the bubbles goes out of the bathroom and into this one place, and into the bar. They find the bubble and they're like, "Hey, who blew that bubble? You all know the rules." And then they're like, all bubble-blowing babies will be beaten senseless by every able-bodied patron. That didn't sound like exactly what it was, but something like that. But, yeah. So they have this DJ that they play the Goofy Goober theme song, and whoever starts singing, they're the ones who blew the bubble. They found out they beat them up because they think they blew the bubble because But then eventually there were these two people with well, there's this guy with 2 heads who sings who starts singing it first, and they beat him up because they think that he blew the bubble, whereas they call him kind of a double bubble blowing baby, or I think maybe just a double baby. So later on, SpongeBob and Patrick find some ice cream, and it's this weird monster thing. And they have to run away from it, which they eventually do. And then they get down, and their car falls down a trench. And there's stairs going down the trench, and then SpongeBob's like, "You're right, we're just kids." And then Mindy, and then there's this so then Patrick's like, and SpongeBob's like, "We worship a dancing peanut for corn's sake." And Patrick's like, we do not worship him. And SpongeBob pulls his pants down like, you've been wearing the same goofy goober party underpants for 3 years straight. What do you call that? Patrick's like, worship? And then here comes another funny joke. So Mindy comes, and then Patrick pulls his pants up, and and then Patrick asks Mindy, did you see my underwear? And then Mindy's like, no, Patrick. And then Patrick's like, do you want to? And yeah, and then Mindy shows them like what's going on, exactly what's going on. At the chum bucket. Meanwhile, back in Bikini Bottom. So Plankton gets the Krabby Patty secret formula, and he starts making Krabby Patties and selling Krabby Patties. So then eventually, when Squidward finds about this, Squidward says that he's going to report Plankton. Squidward finds out that Plankton set up Mr. Krabs. So Squidward tries to report Plankton to King Neptune, but Plankton eventually, gets these. There are these chum bucket helmets, and they're giving one away free with each Krabby Patty. Well, Plankton eventually activates his helmet brain control device, which so they can, so everyone in Bikini Bottom becomes Plankton's slaves. So then Mindy decides to turn SpongeBob and Patrick into men and give them mustaches. So then they start, going down the stairs. They're like singing a song called "Now That We're Men." Now that we're men. Da 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 da. Now that we're men. Da 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 da. Got the stuff tough enough to save the day, and then get the crown. Get the crown, save the town, and Mr. Krabs. Like the song goes like that, and then these monsters start following them. So, like, they become friends, and then SpongeBob's like, we got past the hideous, disgusting monsters, and then the monsters go away, and then SpongeBob's like, not you guys, you're awesome. Now, I've been kind of confused. I've never exactly been for sure what SpongeBob has been referring to as the hideous monsters, but I assume it was the ice cream lady, and as a monster. Yeah, and then they meet this guy named Dennis, who Plankton sent out to exterminate SpongeBob and Patrick. And they find out that, the mustaches were just, were not real. So then, so Dennis decides to exterminate SpongeBob and Patrick with his boot. But then they are eventually saved by a bigger boot. Well, it turns out that the bigger boot was the Cyclops, the guard of Shell City. And the Cyclops eventually catches SpongeBob and Patrick, and they end up in a gift shop, which they eventually find out is Shell City. And then there are eventually these, and then eventually they end up, so they found out that Shell City is a gift shop, and they eventually, they're put under, like, this lamp, and then they eventually, they're I should also mention, at the very beginning of the movie, I mean, very beginning, like after you get the Paramount Pictures logo and the Nickelodeon Movies logo, you get toward a scene where there are these pirates who find tickets to the SpongeBob movie, and then they go and watch it. Well, meanwhile, the pirates are thinking that SpongeBob and Patrick are dead. But then eventually they find out that, SpongeBob and Patrick, they eventually find the so-called Tears of the Goofy Goobers, which eventually goes into, this electrical outlet, and then it turns the lamp off and turns water on, which revives SpongeBob and Patrick, along with a bunch of other dead fish, or well, I guess not. I mean, if they came back to life, I mean, they can't really be dead, but whatever. So then eventually they take down the Cyclops, and Swan and Patrick get the crown, and then they try going back to Bikini Bottom, and they use this bag of winds that Mindy gave them. And by the way, Mindy is King Neptune's daughter. I don't think I know I didn't mention that. But anyway, it turns out that it doesn't work. So then they meet David Hasselhoff, and then David Hasselhoff takes them back to Bikini Bottom. And then they meet Dennis again, and then they get rid of him. But then, they eventually get back with the crown, and then Plankton eventually puts, one of those brain control helmets on King Neptune, and then, so they can get rid of SpongeBob. And then SpongeBob starts singing this song called Goofy Goober Rock, which is a parody of the song I Wanna Rock by Twisted Sister. And then he eventually breaks all of the brain control helmets off of everyone in Bikini Bottom. So then eventually Mr. Krabs gets turned back into first a real boy, which King Neptune accidentally had it set to a real boy ending, and then he changed it to normal, and Mr. Krabs turns back to normal. And SpongeBob and Plankton gets arrested. And then Mr. Krabs, he eventually gives SpongeBob the managerial promotion. Then at the end of the movie, after the credits, we get this scene where the pirates, they have to leave, and then so yeah. Anyway, great movie. And then thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and peace out.